last month I went to see my friend in Belfast, you see. My friend Sean. Sean Pachisi, you know. He's a local Ulsterman, you know. He's so charming, so he is. Anyway, so I went over there, you know. We were having a lovely time, you know, doing the usual things you do. Like, you know, take bus tours of war zones. And look at the Titanic Museum, you know, a marvellous place. Anyway, so at one point we went to a pub. And then went to another pub and another. It was marvellous, you see. Marvellous it was. Lovely pubs, really. Lovely people, so charming, so they are. Anyway, so we were in this pub and we went outside into the beer garden, you know. Anyway, we were chatting there and stuff. And then Sean had to go to the toilet, you know, to relieve himself. And before he went, he said, "Oh, look over there, you see." And there were these three people sat at a table. So he said, I said, "Oh, yes." He said, "I know them." He said, "Do you?" He said, "I do, so I do. Do, so I do know them." Or something. Anyway, I said, "Who are they?" He said, "Tree surgeons." And then he went to the toilet, you see. Anyway, he took an age. He must have been, you know, reenacting the launching of the Titanic or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I thought, well, what? I'll go over and talk to the tree surgeons, you see, because I've got trees myself in the garden, you know. And I might need a bit of, you know, tips and advice and stuff. So I said, "Hello, do you mind if I join you?" He said, "No, sit down." I said, that's very kind of you. So it is, you see. And we was talking about stuff, you know, rugby and you know, stuff like that, and football, you know, and interesting things. So they are. And anyway, we got to the point of conversation, there was a bit of a lull. So I said, "Well, actually, I wonder if you could give me a little bit of help, you see. You see, at the bottom of my garden, I have this oak tree, you see, and it's getting a bit gnarled and bending over, you see, sort of stooped in a kind of stoopy way. And, you know, it's starting to interfere with the aesthetic aspect of my herbaceous borders, you see. And I don't think this is very good, you know, and I'm not quite sure what I should do, you see, so I'm looking for any tips that you may have. Anyway, and I also said I had this rhododendron bush that I can't seem to get, you know, it just doesn't work, really. Looks like a sort of a bloke's head who's had a terrible case of smallpox, you see. You know, and I'm wondering whether I should get one of those sculpture topiarist geezers to make it into something more, you know, attractive, like a monument to, you know, Sir Geoffrey Boycott, or something like that, you see. Anyway, they all sort of looked at me, you know, as they do. So they did. Anyway, and the first one said, "Well, you know, if you ever find yourself, you know, with a cancerous growth or a fissure in your large intestine, give me a ring," you see. And she gave me her business card. I thought, "Thank you very much." And the second person said, "Well, if you ever find yourself, you know, with any kind of heart, you know, arrhythmia, or any kind of aorta blockage or aneurysm, please give me a ring," you see. And he gave me his business card. And then the last one said, "You know, if you ever develop a brain tumour, you see, or anything of that nature, or you need to have a subdural hematoma excavated, you see, give me a shout." And he gave me his business card, you see. So they weren't very helpful, really, were they? You know, bloody Irish. Right. These next few bits are aimed at people who can speak German and who aren't blooming stupid, you see. So if you're not that person, switch off now and bugger off and make some tea. Or something. Right. The other day, I was at home brushing up my German numbers, you see, and making sure that I was, you know, all over them for a trip to Germany that I was making. Anyway, so I'm kind of sat there with them and going through them, you know, and trying to relearn them, you know. Anyway, so Nobby Nibbler thumbs up. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm relearning my German numbers, you see." And then I started to explain which of my German numbers were my favourites, you see, and exactly why, you know, and how interesting they were, and how some of them were more interesting than others, and which of the ones that I particularly enjoyed, and why, you see. Anyway, I realised I was being a little bit self-centred in this conversation. So I thought, well, I shall try and include Nobby Nibbler, you see, and bring him into the conversation so he can kind of feel part of it, you see, and build up his feelings of self-worth, you know. So I said to him, "What's your favourite German number then, Nobby?" And he said, "I like sex." And I said, "I know that, you fool, but I'm asking you about German numbers." So I go on my trip to Germany, you see. It's very good. I went to Rudesheim, you know, which is, well, let's say it's the tackiest place on earth, you know. It makes Blackpool look like Saint-Tropez. Anyway, but it's all right, you know. I was only there for a couple of hours. And I was mooching around, you know, the shops, and I found a jeweller's shop. So I thought, oh, well, I'll have a look in here, you know. I'll have a sort of, you know, nosy round anyway. Anyway, inside there, lo and behold, is Larry Grayson, you see. And I said, "Hello, Larry, how are you doing?" And he said, "Ooh, look at the schmuck in here." Where we were staying in Heidelberg, you see, in a hotel. It was very nice. And opposite was a very, very good butcher's, you see. So I thought, oh, I'll go and have a butcher's at the butcher's, you see. And interestingly enough, along the window was a sort of bench where you could sit and eat stuff, you know. And when I went there, it was loads of chaps who obviously were working, having their lunch. And they were eating black bread with a big slice of smoked ham on it and a beer, you see. And I thought it was marvellous. So I stood outside and watched them, you know, having this smoked ham and black bread and beer, you see. And I was fascinated, you know. Anyway, after about 5 minutes, one of them stuck his head around the door and said, "Oi, what are you doing?" I said, "You leave me alone." I said, "I'm a spectator." What I like about the Germans is they're so very liberal and laid back, you see, and accommodating, you know, which they haven't always been in history. But nowadays they are very, very good, you see, in terms of, you know, being tolerant towards people. And one of the most tolerant places in Germany is the port of Hamburg, you see. I mean, anything goes in Hamburg, you know. Anyway, so I was there on the way home, and I thought I'd nip down the Reeperbahn, you see. Ostensibly to look at the Beatles monument, you see, which is there on the Reeperbahn, near where the Beatles played when they were very young, you see. Anyway, so I'm walking down the Reeperbahn, and there's all sorts of different clubs and weird and wonderful people doing weird and wonderful stuff. And I thought, oh, which is, you know, it's a bit liberal, isn't it? Anyway, so I get a bit nibbly, you know. So I think, well, I'll just stop off, you know. So I stopped off in this cafe, you see. And the waiter comes over, you know. Says, "What would you like, sir?" I said, "Well, I'd like a hamburger, please," you see. Which I thought was appropriate, you know. And then he sort of leans down to me and said, "Would you like it mit Fritz, you see, with Fritz? Would you like it with Fritz?" And I sort of, you know, bristled. And I said, "I don't know who Fritz is, and I'm not that kind of tourist."